And off we go. Explain, it's 20 years of Millennium Park now. This summer, yeah. So it was a great story in Chicago Magazine. Yeah, it was really good. Take care. Hi, I'm Jeanette. Let's walk together. So we are in Millennium Park. It's the Founder's Fountain. It's based on old Greek uh, temples, obviously. And there's what used to be, once upon a time in the 1950s, the tallest building in the city, the Prudential Building. And it's right next to the Ann Building. So those are some of the skyscrapers that line, that's a Smurfit, a stone building. They line Randolph Street and start the loop. This is kind of considered the shoulder of the front yard that is Millennium Park here in Chicago. Welcome. Let's walk together. So this summer they're celebrating the 20th anniversary and they're having fun. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful day in October, which is nice. So since there was a fantastic article in Chicago Magazine, it was actually their June-July edition because July was the 20th anniversary of the park. So a really great article, and it sort of inspired me to come over here and walk. This weekend is Columbus Day weekend, and it's also the marathon. So it's a really big weekend in the city. Let's go. One of the things that was done when they, when they decided to build Millennium Park was these structures. Ahead of me is a Frank Gehry music venue. It's called Pritzker Pavilion. This is called Cloud Gate. It's a sculpture by Anish Kapoor. The gardens are nice. Actually, down that street or down several of the streets, you can see Chicago Henge when the sun sets directly west. Twice a year. But in the meantime, let's take a look at how they made sort of separate rooms in Millennium Park. They wanted to have a music venue in the initial plan. So underneath the park is railroad tracks and parking. At one point, the railroad had tracks with only one boxcar on it, so that it seemed to be still using the railroad tracks, but it wasn't really using them. It was using what's under us as parking. And it was thought that the railroad owned that land, but they didn't. Turns out that they had an easement right, but they couldn't build any buildings on it. So that's why it was empty for so long. My entire childhood into adulthood, really. So this is the front of the Frank Gehry designed Pritzker Pavilion. One of my favorite things to do in the city is to come here in the summer with a nice slice of pizza and a little bottle of wine and have a picnic for a free concert and sit on the great lawn. So overhead are speakers set into a grid so that you can hear it all the way back there. So it ends over here. This is the entrance to Lurie Garden. We'll get there too. So it's a big venue, and behind it is actually a place called Harris Theater. They added a theater, but you can't. There's a Daniel Burnham plan of Chicago where you cannot build buildings on the lakefront. So these are considered art. The building that's behind this, the Harris Theater, actually only the lobby is above ground and the rest is underneath. What's my watch doing? Let's keep going. The park has been a huge success, though it was 4 years late and hugely over budget. But it also became more of a spectacle than was originally intended. The legend is that Mayor Daley was sitting at his dentist's office there along Michigan Avenue, and looking out at the ugly that it was really railroad tracks and parking area, and thought, well, we can do better. But it wasn't just Daly. There were a lot of people who were involved in the making of Millennium Park. Granger Plaza. The funding was done both by the city and donations, private donations. It grew, I don't know, 230 million, maybe 450 million. My numbers, if you know me, you know my numbers are terrible. This is Anish Kapoor's Cloud Gate. It's called Cloud Gate because it really just reflects. It distorts a little bit, but it reflects. So you don't see the piece as much as you see the buildings and yourself. Um, Slightly distorted. Everybody loves it. It's big enough to walk under. It's 110 tons, I think, was the weight that I saw of the building. Stainless steel, polished, put together here by the city. So you're still looking at it, but it's hard to tell, I suppose. And when you get to this side, you can see that it actually reflects all of the skyscrapers, distorts them a little bit. We all call it the bean because it's shaped like one, but its real name is Cloud Gate. And initially they were going to put a Jeff Koons sculpture here, I guess. But when they realized that they could make something really spectacular of the park, rather than just a green space, they started looking internationally for artwork, and they were able to put up art. The Daniel Burnham plan says that the lakefront will be free and clear of buildings forever. And so this isn't a building, it's an art piece. And actually, it's hugely popular. Who'd have known back at the time that the selfie population would come in? Down below the bean, these are several restaurants on what becomes an ice rink in the winter. So we get a little musical background. Several restaurants, I believe. And it's nice. And then they'll take them all down, and in the winter, people will be ice skating over there. It's another view of Cloud Gate, the bean. We'll take a walk through all of the pieces of art that are in the park. Keep walking. So the trees are just about to change. They're just starting. I love them at this time of year. This time and in the spring when the blossoms come out on the trees, it's really quite spectacular then. And it's turned into a phenomenal park. So there, underneath the bean is big concrete to help hold it because we're up a level. We're up above the cars. Let's see. Okay, there we are. That's me waving. And my shadow. That's as close as I need to get. Oh, you can also go underneath it. I suppose we could walk there. It is kind of fun. It's really distorted. You can get a better view of the Prudential building, the Ann, and the second Ann 2, I believe it's called, Blue Cross Blue Shield, condo building next to it. You can see the wave. It's Radisson Blue and Jeannie Gang architecture. It's real wavy behind it. Okay, let's see all the people in here. And mostly they see themselves, but sort of distorted. It's fun. Looks like the snack places are some closed, some open. And we've been I feel horrible for all the hurricanes that have been happening. The weather here has been astonishingly nice. So it's weird how different it can be around our country. Okay, next on to the Crown Fountain. The fountain was, according to the article in Chicago Magazine, was created when they were talking. I think it's a Spanish artist who came up with this fountain. and it allows people to interact a lot with the water. And what it is LED images on glass blocks. You can hear the water rushing now. Here's another view. Entrance to the park. So we've got the marathon this weekend. I was actually hoping to be in it, but I'm not doing it this year. And so they are getting prepared for it. So they've got railings all along the entrance to the park so that the marathoners will be out on the street, and it will keep the park a little bit separate. Here's Crown Fountain. Knowing that it's LED and that it wouldn't have been created without technology of computers makes it a little bit different. I don't know the name of this sculpture. It's got a seat. That's nice. And it doesn't say a name anywhere. Oh, there's some fun ones. We do some periodic changes of public sculpture. Kind of fun. It's metal. Boulders. We have big boulders. Okay, so over here you can see what they call Crown Fountain. There's some kids playing in it. And this and this face each other. With him in the sun, you can't see his face as well. The faces change. There's 1,000 random people from Chicago. And as time moves on, they move pretty slowly. But as it does, the faces change, the mouth opens, and perhaps you can see that little hole. That's where the mouth usually is. And it seems to spit water out that the kids can play in. It's pouring down water on the sides, and they're all glass blocks with LED technology to put the faces on them. Let's keep going. So one of the things that changed from the initial plan of Millennium Park was that it ended up facing south. Part of the reason for it to face south was to have it look, rather than at Randolph, which is where we just came from, to have it look at the Art Institute, sort of, at this end, and to be able to use all the way from Randolph to Monroe, which is this street up here, and then all the way over to Columbus. So that's a couple different rooms. The park is split into rooms. Coming up, we'll go into the Lurie Garden, and then probably onto the bridge, Ribbon Bridge. So that's really just an employee entrance to the Art Institute. We're coming over onto the modern wing. And I believe this is considered a VP bridge. They're the ones who put the bill for it. And it goes over Monroe into the modern wing of the Art Institute. So had we walked straight from the pavilion, we would have walked along this sidewalk instead of going out to Michigan Avenue, which we did. This is Monroe Street and the modern wing. I really prefer the traditional old entrance to the Art Institute myself. Here's a map of it all. So we are right over here. We came from here and walked all along there. So now we'll go into the garden. And the plan for the Lurie Garden was to make it quiet and as though you've stepped away from the city. The motto of the city in Latin is garden in a city, or city in a garden. Oh, shoot. Look at this. Well, okay. Oh, here it is over here. Got the hedges. And let's enter the garden. So I believe a lot of florals are indigenous, grasses and things. A lot of flowers probably more in the summer. Augmented Chicago, audioscapes. I don't think there are any audioscapes on right now, but it is very quiet in here. So they did have a water feature going all the way around it. Looks like it is not functioning right now. So it did have water going all the way under, and maybe it will again, who knows. It looks like a prairie. This is Prairie Gardens. It's what it looked like when people came over to this area in their covered wagons looking to go west. Excuse me. It's very fall.
So gorgeous, the lighting. Yeah. So pretty.
Very quiet, meditative, etc. I do love gardens, but boy, do I love them in France, England, and Italy. This is a big garden. And here we've come out the other side, and we're back to this is the back of the Great Lawn. So usually when I come to a concert, I don't typically get a seat. Those are what's up front, up here, actually in front of all that, down lower. So if there's dancing, I might get a seat because you want to see that stuff. But if it's just the orchestra, Grand Park Orchestra is the main one that performs there, then in that case, I will just sit on the lawn. So the bridge, here's the BP bridge again. More stainless steel, it's fun. And it curves over the street and leads over to Maggie Daley Park, which is more of a playground named for the mayor's wife, who was a proponent of having the park built. Looks like they're working on the speaker system, maybe. This is what the saying how on the Great Lawn there's speakers on these. Ooh, they look rusty, but they bring stereo sound all the way along the Great Lawn. Actually, I believe in the winter they make this into an ice rink or an ice like path. You can skate on it some years. Some years it's not frozen enough. And I see up here we can see we're higher to see the seating at the pavilion. On the red is the chairs. Actually, I've sat in one of the close-up rows for Broadway in Chicago, and it was raining. And you can see how it kind of curves down. Does not protect the audience from rain. Never been so soaked. So the marathon will come under here. kind of fun. Thousands upon thousands of people. We're curving over. Kind of disappointed to not be doing the marathon. I signed up for it and started training, and I'm afraid I chose travel over training. So this year is not my year for it. I would have walked. I love walking. And if I felt like they would give me 8 hours, I would still do it. But they take the stuff down. They want you to finish it sooner. So not this time. So you can see this bridge curves around and around and around and ends down there. And I'll start up back there.